You say tomato. I say tomato. You say potato. I say potato. Tomato, tomato. Potato, potato. Let's call the whole thing off. It's interesting, right? How different countries and nationalities have different accents. We pronounce things in different ways when you compare British and American accents. I don't think anybody says potato. Potato. But comparatives, that's what we're looking at in this unit, right? We're looking at comparing different things. And some typical IELTS questions in part one that look at comparing A or B. So the grammar here you can find all in the PDF, but very quickly, if the adjective, we're looking at comparatives of adjectives, right? If the adjective is one syllable and sometimes two, we just put ER, right? It's shorter, it's longer, it's bigger, it's nicer. If the adjective is three or more syllables, we use more, right? It's more expensive, it's more economical, it's more beautiful. And we can use emphasis by just adding much. It's much nicer. It's much more beautiful. Or far or way. It's way nicer, right? It's way more beautiful. Manchester is way more beautiful than London, I'd say. So let's have a look. The questions we often get, right, in part one are, do you prefer A or B? Now, you don't have to use comparisons or comparative adjectives to give an answer, but you can. And it's a great opportunity to show your control of the comparisons. I mean, that's what the examiner's looking out for, right? Can you use comparisons? So let's take an example, right? Do you prefer to read a paper book or a digital book? So again, repeat with me. To be honest, I prefer paper books. Dee-dee-dee-dee, dee-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee. To be honest, I prefer paper books. Because they're nicer to hold than digital books. Dee-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee, dee-dee-dee-dee-dee. Because they're nicer to hold than digital books. So notice it's a dee-dee-dee-dee-dee, dee-dee-dee-dee-dee. Because they're nicer to hold than digital books. And just much easier to use too. Dee-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee. And just much easier to use too. That said, digital ones are actually cheaper. Dee-dee, dee-dee-dee-dee, dee-dee-dee-dee. Nice. Notice that said, dee-dee, falling, rising, dee-dee. That said, digital ones are actually cheaper. Great. The whole thing together. To be honest, I prefer paper books because they're nicer to hold than digital books and just much easier to use too. That said, digital ones are actually cheaper. Great. Very nice. Excellent. Let's move on. So transport is a common topic, right? And this is a question that sometimes comes up. Do you prefer to travel by train or plane? I might say, I usually travel by train. D, 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 D. I usually travel by train because it's far more comfortable than a plane. D, 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 D. Because it's far more comfortable than a plane. Or because it's far more comfortable than a plane. Right? That far you can really emphasize. It's also cheaper. D, 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 D. It's also cheaper. I know planes are faster. D, 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 D. I know planes are faster, but going to the airport is a bit of a hassle. D, 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 D. But going to the airport is a bit of a hassle. Right? So notice that last sentence. I know planes are faster, but going to the airport is a bit of a hassle. So we often get that two, when you've got two clauses. I know da 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 da, but da 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 da. It often rises, then goes down. I know planes are faster, but going to the airport is a bit of a hassle. Great. What's a hassle? Right. So a hassle is something is difficult, problematic, bothersome, something that, just makes life a pain in the arse, to speak plain English. So we can substitute. Let's have a look at some substitutes. Let's substitute hassle, right, for nuisance, right? Not Newton, Isaac Newton. No, nuisance, right? Nuisance. So a nuisance is a hassle. Going to the airport is a bit of a nuisance. Pain. Going to the airport is a bit of a pain. Bother. Going to the airport, it's a bit of a bother. Right? So notice these are all nouns. A hassle, a nuisance, a pain, a bother. We're using them as nouns here, all with the same meaning. Nice. Next question. So this question is about work. Do you prefer a long break or short breaks at work? Generally speaking, generally speaking, I'd rather take short breaks. I'd rather take short breaks. They're far better for my concentration and productivity. They're far better for my concentration and productivity. Generally speaking, I'd rather take short breaks because they're far better for my concentration and productivity. And you're saying, Keith, where did that because come from? Yes, I know. I just slipped it in. Again, it came out naturally. You don't have to say it, but you could. I'd rather take short breaks. They are far better. I'd rather take short breaks because they are far better for my concentration. So I'm not catching you out. You can do it either way. Excellent. That is the video on comparatives.